Even if we were told that this is what's going to happen, we have to shut down, we thought maybe this thing was going to be just like for a couple of weeks.
The local tourism industry has been experiencing extreme difficulty since the lockdown was initiated at the end of March with the travel ban. When we had initially started the lockdown, the tourism industry was all for it. We understood the need to save lives, and initially the understanding was that lockdown would be for around 30 days. And even though it was unexpected, we understood as the sector that we needed to play our part, which we did.
It's almost now 5 months, and it has been like a big challenge, because if you look at our business, we used to get like guests every day, so bookings every day. Our business, we used to rely on day-to-day like income, then 5 months of zero income, so it has been a very big challenge. Yeah.
Tourism on a national level contributes about 118 billion rand, and I think it employs around 740,000 people, and it accounts for about 113,000 jobs in Cape Town alone. Based on our study, it looks like there's about 90,000 jobs at risk with the continued lockdown. The only way we're going to get through this is for government and business and communities to work closer together in the recovery. I think it's also an important time for us to be able to transform the industry and not just talk about it. And I think in that way we can start creating better futures for everyone.
You know, like the country's sick, but I still like to eat, and I'm gonna have my pastrami sandwich no matter what.
It's definitely different because I'm used to seeing a bunch of people inside here. It's normally like a crowded place.
I don't think anyone in their right mind expected this type of summer. I don't think anyone was ready for 2020. We don't like change. We fear change a little bit here. We like to preserve our old traditions. You know, during normal times, I would say we could see anywhere from 400 to about 4,000 customers in a given day. We're obviously not seeing that these days. We're just seeing people leaving the city. We're lucky if we see 100 customers in a day now. And when people don't have money in their pockets and there's no influx of foreign cash and there's no help from the government, it's a lethal combination. If you go back all the way to the 1880s through today, in that time we've seen a different pandemic, a couple world wars, a couple depressions, a couple recessions, every imaginable world crisis. Listen, I can't speak to the world wars or the first pandemic, but I can speak to the crises that I've seen over my tenure here. This is different. You know, in my lifetime, I can't ever think of a single incident that has unilaterally impacted every single person in the world at the same time. We've been open since day one. All 200 employees are still working here. We've been able to not lay anyone off through a couple of different things, one of which is shipping throughout the country. Send a salami to your boy in the army is our slogan since World War II. It started because the owner at that time had 3 sons serving overseas, and Grandma was just afraid they weren't eating particularly well. You know, those government rations weren't so great.
Send a salami to your boy in the army.
And since then, we've figured out how to sell other items, pastrami's and mustards and soups, knishes, latkes, and doing that has really allowed us to offset some of our losses.
For the first time in 133 years, we're doing outdoor dining.
As far as we're aware, there was no outdoor seating at any time. That includes during the first pandemic. Come over here and you order sandwiches. Because of the pandemic, we've had to create a line around and promote social distancing. And you could tell it's a little different now, right? And screaming and the energy and the chaos when there's 300 people in the store. Now we kind of limit it to about 15, 20 customers at a time.
I mean, I'd love to sit down just because sitting here is part of the experience, just watching everyone and like seeing the tourists come in and kind of being shell-shocked. Still, everything here, the guys and everything like that, that hasn't changed.
You know, the camaraderie with the people, the connection with the public, I think that's the biggest change.
In many ways, I'm just a Jewish grandmother. I just want to feed people. And having people be able to let me do that is great. Feed the Front Lines is helping us through the orders that they're able to give us, and they're able to pay for those orders in a way that allows us to pay for the staff to keep working. You know, very early on in the pandemic, in helping to feed healthcare workers, frontline workers. If you think about our slogan, send a salami to your boy in the Army, well, you don't need to send it very far. You know, our soldiers are located 20 blocks away, you know, and they needed our help.
More and more now, as the crisis has shifted away from the hospitals, we've also been supporting Katz's in feeding New Yorkers who are increasingly food insecure. I don't think anyone really knows what's next for the restaurant industry. We want to keep giving them a lifeline and keep making sure that places like Katz's can keep their people employed.
Hopefully we'll be here another 132 years, and if some future pandemic, they'll look back at this tape and say, wow, it was exactly the same then.
These are lighter patients who are confirmed. They can come here, and there are doctors and nurses that can make assessment. And if they are stable, they can actually stay here. You can see there are beds, there are tables, and there are Wi-Fi, and there are also other technological equipments whereby they can do, for example, self-monitoring of their blood pressure. And this is a facility whereby we can really relieve the pressure, you know, of the hospital.
Across Victoria and elsewhere around the country. The most concerning part of the information released today was that there were a further 13 deaths. That brings to some 189 deaths now in Australia as a result of COVID-19, and some 105 that occurred in Victoria. 10 out of those 13 deaths occurred in aged care, and I will speak further after I have addressed the issues with Minister Wyatt and Pat Turner on the announcements that we're making today. But there's been a series of further measures that we've been taking there which have been making some progress. Aged care cases, including staff, account for just around about 10% of the total cases announced today. Specifically in aged care, there were 16 cases of residents. The balance, 74 in total, 58 were staff. And staff contracting the virus, my advice is predominantly from community transmission.
I thought that was it. I was done. There's no more. But they gave me hope. Told me transplant. Here I am.
Lung transplant isn't for every patient with COVID-19, but it does offer some of the critically ill patients another option for survival. Mara and Brian are living proof of that.
This disease is not a joke.
It's not a hoax.
This is true. This hit me like a lead slammer on my head. I was perfectly healthy. This thing took me down hard.
For 6 weeks, Mara fought for her life in the COVID ICU. The virus completely destroyed her lungs.
It wasn't until weeks later that I had the ability to, think to myself, there's a family out there that's grieving their loved one. I have that person's lungs, and how lucky I was to have received it.
We condemn the Hong Kong government's decision to postpone for 1 year its legislative council elections and to disqualify opposition candidates. This action undermines the democratic processes and freedoms that have underpinned Hong Kong's prosperity, and this is only the most recent in a growing list of broken promises by Beijing, which promised autonomy and freedoms to the Hong Kong people until 2047 and the Sino-British joint.
Megasis, the first Iranian supermarket, just opened its doors in Venezuela, offering a mix of national and import products, both from Iran and other countries. The opening of Megasis shows, once again, Iran's strong support to Maduro's regime, weakened by 7 years of economic contraction and US sanctions. Iran already come to rescue in May, sending 5 tankers filled with gas. But now, it's sending products such as beans, corn oil, flour, cereals,